Alright, hey guys, here we go. We got two videos to make right here and two videos to do. One's going to be about Napoleon and the other one's going to be about life after Napoleon. So here we go with Napoleon. If you can see, he was the little general, the guy on top of the horse right here. If you notice on his horse, he has a picture. He's got the crown and he's got the N. And this is a painting of him as emperor. So he's in major control of France right now. But it's definitely showing his power. And you can see the beauty of his horse. Again, looking at this very detailed painting of Napoleon and what he's doing as a military leader, but also as the emperor of France at the time. So let's look into a little bit of Napoleon's background. First off, Napoleon Bonaparte is his name. He is not actually French. He's Corsican. Corsica is a small island off the coast of both Italy and France that was owned by the French at the time. As a matter of fact, when Napoleon goes to France, he can't even speak French. He has to learn how to speak French when he gets there because they spoke a different language on the Corsican island. Of course, he is going to be trained as a soldier. And of course, you know that's why he's very famous as a soldier and a military man, especially in his use of artillery. They're going to notice at a very young age in his training that he is very good at using artillery, and that's going to be a big deal down the road. Okay? So he's going to enter into the military as an officer and eventually be elevated to the head of the French army, and he'll do this because of his time during the French Revolution. All right, he's going to win a major battle at the port of Toulon, which is going to control the southern part of France. He is also going to help defend the Tuileries against the royalists. So, you know, really a lot of times Napoleon kind of is always in the right place at the right time, and it's going to make himself very famous. As we know about Napoleon already, he's going to manipulate his way into control to the point where they are afraid of him and fear him. The director will not want him around. So as the head of the French army, they're going to ask Napoleon to go on conquests, okay? So he's going to go down to Egypt, which we've talked about before. He's going to go down and conquer Egypt. Of course, he's going to leave his army in Egypt when the British Navy defeats the French Navy. But he will return, and when he returns, he's going to seize power in 1799 and become a dictator. And we know a dictator is a government run by one person or the military who is in control. In this case, we're definitely talking about Napoleon. Okay, so that seizing of power when he becomes a dictator will be known as a coup d'etat. So go ahead and underline the term coup d'etat. Coup d'etat means a blow to the state, an overthrow of the government. And he's going to use the military to do this to make his point. And everything's going to be done through the military. Okay, but it's very important to understand this because it's not just going to be Napoleon. This is kind of a foresight to see other revolutions and overthrows of their monarchs, especially when we get to the coup of the Russian Revolution, we get to the Chinese coup. It's definitely an overthrow of their governments. Okay, so his goal is to fix France. He wants to restore it to the power that he had once had and the power that France once had under Louis XIV, but not in the monarchical way, but really in a much more, I guess, a dictatorial type of way that he's going to be the dictator and military leader. So his first thing is to make France strong again, you got to make it financially secure. So he's going to fix the tax system. He's going to establish a national bank to hold on to our taxes, kind of like our Fed today. We have to fix a tax system. Obviously, the biggest issue with the ancient regime was the fact that the first and second estates were not paying taxes. Napoleon's going to work all that stuff out to make sure everybody's paying equally or what they should be paying in taxes. The second thing is he's going to set up government-run schools for boys to be educated. Now, understand, unfortunately, girls, it's not about you, but with the boys, the big thing is here, they're going to be training them to be soldiers, and it's going to be done in Napoleon propaganda. And that kind of propaganda is going to try to make France strong once again and to make more officers, to make more soldiers. And that's the big deal here with the government and schools. And the third thing is he's got to fix the deal with the church, okay? For the longest time, France had been so conservative and Catholic, and then it goes to this idea of a supreme being and deist with God taken out, and the church really gets attacked, and it's going to lose a lot of power, it's going to lose wealth and land, and Napoleon's going to kind of restore that with what's called a concordat. Okay, a concordat is an agreement with the Pope to keep church influence. Now, Napoleon wasn't worried about religion. That was not his realm. What he was more concerned about was keeping the people happy. If the people stay happy, they stay under his control, and obviously religion is a big part. Of course, toleration is going to happen in this idea too, but really it's getting the Catholic Church back to where it needs to be in France. Okay, so ultimately, he's not only going to fix France that way, but he's also going to bring in new laws and new orders. And of course, the new law and order that we're going to look at is called the Napoleonic Code. And really, here's what the Napoleonic Code kind of focuses on. Again, this is like completely opposite to the French Revolution, which we've just gone through. It's this idea of instead of giving liberties to people, we're taking them away. Okay, we're promoting more order through the military and really trying to ramp up mercantilism and slavery in the colonies to make more money. Of course, all these things are going to kind of backfire to a degree, but it will, to a degree, modernize France and bring it forward under his power, under his ideas, even though they're the complete way opposite of the French Revolution. All right. So by 1801, he's instituting his ideas. He becomes the Emperor of France, and very similar to this idea of Charlemagne going to the Pope to become the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Napoleon will go before the Pope, but much different this time around, where the Pope places the crown upon Charlemagne's head. Napoleon snatches that crown and with his egotistical, narcissistic way places it upon his own head, and that he is no second to any man. Okay, that's just how crazy this guy was, and very powerful. And understand, he's a great military mind. He's going to go on these conquests and expand France's influence. Okay, and he's really going to ruffle the feathers of a lot of countries around the world, especially around Europe, because ultimately what Napoleon wants to do is conquer all of Europe and unite it under French control. Okay, so while he's trying to run these wars and trying to conquer, he's running into problems, especially in the colonies. Now, one thing that's not in these notes, but you have to understand, is what Napoleon's going to do is he's going to set up what is called the continental system, where essentially he is going to blockade Europe, set up a barrier of ships around Europe that's going to hurt trade, especially with England, and not allowing England to bring their goods back and forth into Europe to trade with those countries. You know, in saying that, it's also an issue going towards the colonies, okay? Because the French colonies are running into major issues, and one of his biggest issues is going to be in Haiti. And next week we'll talk about the Haitian Revolution, but the slaves are going to revolt there because they're so poorly run. And that's going to be a big problem because the big crop in Haiti is sugar. And the French are making lots of money off of sugar, and they're really going to screw this up. So Napoleon's got big problems there. Meanwhile, he's trying to fund wars all throughout Europe. So he's going to have to do something to gain some extra cash. Okay? So between the revolts that are weakening France there, he's got to cut his losses. So what he decides to do is he's going to give up a big chunk of his value, of his worth, back to the United States. So he calls up Thomas Jefferson. Of course, they couldn't call each other up. They didn't have phones back then. But Thomas Jefferson and Napoleon get into contact with one another, and they make an agreement that's going to push the United States forward and really try to help France, but it's going to be more beneficial to the United States as we get there. And what that's going to be is over the Louisiana Purchase. Napoleon is going to sell all the Louisiana Territory, the Mississippi River, and New Orleans to the United States for $15 million. Folks, that's 500 million acres at 3 cents apiece. It was a steal. And of course, Jefferson jumps all over it. Now, it's going to help fund Napoleon in his wars and what he needs in the moment. But what it's going to do for the United States is continue our westward expansion and really expand our country today. So if you look at the picture, here it is in 1803 and 1804. This section, it's going to double the size of our country and give us a lot more power with this Louisiana Purchase. It makes us a viable country. All right, $15 million, though it seems like a lot of money, was nothing when it came to the expansion of our country. So in saying that, Europe's going to turn against Napoleon. They don't like this continental system. They don't like the fact that he's actually trying to destroy and take over all of Europe. He's moving into the west. He's moving into the east. He's trying to fight against the British. He's running into problems, though, because Napoleon, one of his downfalls is he's completely and utterly impatient. All right, but he's a great tactician, which is why he's able to conquer a lot of land. Okay, so the first place he's going to really lose is in the Peninsula War over the Iberian Peninsula against the Spanish guerrillas. He's trying to expand France westward into Spain, and it's not going to work. And one of the words of their guerrilla has nothing to do with the actual animal. It has to do with the word guerre or guerra, which means war. And the Spanish guerrillas fought in a very much a hit and run, a very small bands of people, hit and run type warfare that the very organized French battalions were not prepared for. So they lose the Peninsula War. So Napoleon's got to set his sights somewhere else. So what he's going to do is he's going to set his sights on the east. He's going to go towards Russia. But there's two problems with going into Russia. One, you can't attack Russia in the wintertime. The winters are so bad that it's really going to decimate and destroy Napoleon's army. And the other problem is their policy of scorched earth. This idea that as Napoleon's army marches forward, you leave nothing for them to take. You burn all the fields. You kill all the livestock. You take all resources with you. That way the advancing army, as they move forward and forward and forward into your country, have no resources. And it's too far away from their home to get more resources. And because of that, you're going to have issues with famine. You're going to have issues with lack of energy. There people are going to get sick and they're going to die. And Napoleon's army is going to be decimated as he tries to move into Russia, to the point where morale is so bad that Napoleon's going to lose like 70% of his men trying to go into Russia. It was a bad move. Even though he has a stronger army than the Russian army, it's the simple fact that you can't fight them in the wintertime, and you definitely can't fight when you don't have resources. So when Napoleon returns, they are not happy with him. Okay, the government and the country is not happy with him. And here's a picture of him marching through the snow through Russia. When he returns, though, he is going to be sent to a prison island, the island of Elba. And there he's going to be basically put on house arrest. Ironically enough, they send him to prison, which was his summer home. So he escapes from Elba, and he returns to southern France. And before we get into Waterloo, it's a great story about Napoleon. When he returns to France, he steps off the ship, and the French army is there waiting for him to stop him. And Napoleon steps in front of them and rips his jacket off and says, "If you will not follow me, then kill me now." And not one of them shoots him. He gets back on his horse, and he takes that army right back to Paris, where he gains control. However, it's kind of the beginning of the end here for Napoleon. He starts to get himself out of place, out of line, and he begins fighting more with that quadruple alliance, Britain, Prussia, Austria, and Russia. And they are really going to surround Napoleon to the point where they get to the Battle of Waterloo in Belgium, where Lord Wellington has basically been following Napoleon and tracking Napoleon to the point where the British are going to bring him to his end, okay? So he's defeated by Wellington and his allies, and the English take Napoleon into control, and they actually put him in a prison island again this time, but they are not going to send him to his summer home. They're going to send him to the most remote section of the South Atlantic Ocean called St. Helena, and that's where Napoleon will live his life out until 1821, where he is going to die. Okay, now he's going to die of a stomach ailment. A lot of people believe he dies of stomach cancer. There's actually a theory where the British chefs were poisoning his salt with arsenic, leading to a very slow death over the course of time, eating away at his stomach. But when Napoleon dies, Europe has to be fixed. And that's what the next video is going to look at here.